Hello, folks. Len the Legend here, and back in the saddle. It's been a little while since I've been in this position, ready to release a podcast. And it's been a while because, well, King of 94 and a few other things. And I've had this one in the queue for some time. I just had to edit it, and I finally got around to doing it. So here we are. This one is with Matt. He is developing something called RetroArchAI. It's an AI tool that will hopefully be developed over time that we could see be released, something we could use to play against rather than playing the computer, or if we can't find an opponent, a human opponent online, this may be a viable substitute. And so this is still in the very preliminary stages, but Matt is working on it in his spare time. And forgive me for the audio quality because he is in China, so because of the great distance and so forth. So it was the audio quality wasn't perfect, but still I think it's good enough, and I hope you enjoy it. And I have a lot more ready to go, but until then, enjoy the one that I have to do with Matt. Welcome, 16-bit hockey fans, to yet another edition of the NHL 94 podcast. It's been a few weeks, maybe a month or so, since I've been at this. Busy summer, busy time in my life. But either way, back at it, back in the driver's seat here. And I'm going to be joined today with a gentleman by the name of Mathieu, who has a very... Well, I'm going to be learning about his background because it's not much I could find, but he does do one thing that is very interesting. That's about the RetroArchAI. But before we go any further, Mathieu, how are you, buddy?
I'm pretty good. Here in Shanghai, it's 8 a.m. on Sunday morning, and we have some holidays, so quite relaxed.
So for those who are unaware, he is the other side of the world. I'm recording Saturday night. It's Sunday morning over there in eastern part of China. It's the first time I got anybody from China to come on this show, but Mathieu is a Canuck, so he's over there doing his thing. But before we go any further, I just want to know a little bit about your background, per se, to do with, how you got into NHL 94, how you started playing it. I want to hear your story with NHL 94. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically my first console was a Sega Master System, and eventually it was time to upgrade. And for some reason, I got my parents bought me the Sega Genesis, and the game. Since I loved hockey, I got NHL 94 with it. And actually, it was my first and only game for Sega Genesis because the other games I rented or I used my copy of NHL 94 to temporarily trade with for other games because it was so popular. And actually, I think it's the only game you really need on Sega Genesis.
It's a great game.
It's like very deep, and Sega Genesis was very good at sports games compared to the Super Nintendo. I don't want to start any wars, but I think Sega Genesis was better for sports games because the CPU was more powerful.
Yeah, and I don't want to go into any wars. You're right. But if you have to trash any side, if you want to trash Super Nintendo, be my guest. I have no problems with doing that. I do respect the people that play it, and I actually am starting to play it myself. But no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But yeah, go on with your story.
Yeah. So, well, I like Nintendo. Like I own some Nintendo consoles, just not the Super Nintendo. And yeah, so eventually, like I sold the Sega Genesis because I wanted to buy a Nintendo 64 when the 64 came out. The Super Mario was 64 was very impressive and still is to this day. But I regret doing that. I don't regret getting the Nintendo 64, but I regret selling my Sega Genesis with NHL 94. Then fast forward many years later to I think around 2021. I'm interested in machine learning and the video games. So eventually I thought NHL 94 was a game that I really loved when I was a kid. It would be fun to improve the AI for it. And eventually I saw online that people were interested. Some people were interested by having a better AI player. So yeah, I started working on it, but on my free time, so it's very slow progress, much slower than I wish. Mm-hmm. But now yeah, now we have like the functional AI for the one-on-one version using machine learning. Uh, it's still, I mean, I think it's stronger than the base AI, but there's still some room to go. Yeah, so that's pretty much sums it up for my history with NHL and football.
Now, I'm curious then, what's your background in terms of programming? Like, what sort of languages did you learn growing up, and professionally, what are you applying? Because this RetroArch AI, I want to talk about this particularly, but before we get there, just your programming background. I'd love to get some history of you before we go any further.
Yeah, so I worked in the game industry since the beginning of my career. So in 2006, I worked for Activision, and eventually I joined Ubisoft. I worked on some shooters like Far Cry 4, and now I'm working on Age of Mythology. So yeah, I worked on diverse games, but I never worked on sports games, strangely. And yeah, I use mostly at work. I mostly use C++.
Hmm.
Sometimes some Python when you, for example, if you want to control machine learning stuff, use Python, but underneath it's C++. And the game engines, most of the game engines is C++. So yeah, sometimes yeah, I got a bit of scripting like Lua and various scripting, depending on the engine you're working with. But yeah, the core is always C++ if you want to go and if you want to work in the game industry. And yeah, so it's been a long time since 2006. That's like what I don't know, 18 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, uh, yeah. So the yeah, that's pretty much my background with it. Uh, and right now, the game industry it's like at the turning point, like a lot of other industries because of AI.
Hmm.
So but I think in the game industry, we're still trying to figure out AI, like how to best use of it. Like there's already some use of it, of course. To upscale the resolutions of games and things like that. But it's still the game industry. I think is still a bit slow to adapt to it because making a game is very hard from the start. Just making a video game is very hard. So
Hmm.
including machine learning with it makes it even harder, and the budget's always very tight. And so it's hard for companies to know how much money they should put on machine learning for guaranteed results. When the project they're doing, the video game is already very risky by nature.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's a bit slower to adoption in the game industry.
Yeah, and certainly whoever does it like right the first time, it's going to set the path for how it should be done moving forward. Are you familiar with the way programming for video games was done way back when for like Atari, for instance? Is the way I mean, I'm going to just go into the weeds here. I'm just going into diverting into a different direction, but the way gaming industries now, like it's to build a game, you need a huge team of people behind it to create it, to think about it, to but back in the day, did you know that it was essentially just like a one person per game team? Like back in the Atari days, they basically just somebody came up with an idea, they programmed it. It may take them like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but that's the way it was. It was just basically one person, one game. The way games have evolved, it's incredible, and it's like in the past say 40 years, and AI is going to be a further evolution to this. I mean, have you followed the way games have been developed over the years and throughout the history?
Yeah, it's quite amazing, like all the transformation we went through. Like today, you still have one-man army games like Stardew Valley. There's huge success. Minecraft at the beginning was just one man.
Huh.
The core of the game was just one man. So there's some huge success out there that's just one or two people behind it. But yeah, nowadays it's like I remember Far Cry 4 was there. Don't remember exactly, but the ballpark is something like 800, 1,000 at the peak. and that's across many studios on the planet
Hmm.
for Ubisoft. So it's like really, really huge and hard to manage. When you wanted to do a change, it's much tougher than when you're a very, very small team.
Yeah.
But you get this huge amount of manpower, and if you want to do something really new or uh, you know do something uh, that requires a lot of work, then having this huge team can do it pretty fast if you're structured properly, or if your engine is if you have the right tech.
Now, with
So
respect, oh, sorry,
yeah,
go on.
no, go on, go on.
I was going to say that with respect to RetroArchAI, this is something I find to be fascinating. The fact that you're going into this, and from what I gather, this is a rather recent release. I'm not sure how long you've been working on this, but the first time I've seen the code is back in July of 2022. It came out first. Am I correct in that it was first released on GitHub 2 years and change ago?
Uh, yeah, it's like it's yeah, I think it's 2021. Like there was this NHL 94 AI GitHub. The project was called NHL 94 AI on GitHub, but it was just like Python scripts. It was not integrated in RetroArch yet. It was just like you run some scripts and you can run the model. Uh, and it was it's still using OpenAI's Retro because to do their research, to use the video games to measure the performance of their algorithms and the models they're trying to develop, and also for reinforcement learning. So yeah, but at the beginning it was just a bunch of script. The RetroArch repo is just this year that I created because eventually I noticed like people don't want to set up a bunch of script, and I totally understand that.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to like double click on an app and set the AI and play with it. So that's what I'm working on. So to make it much more user friendly. Yeah, but there's still a long ways to go, and it's in my free time. So recently I didn't have much time. Like the last month, I didn't have to get in touch it
Mm-hmm.
much. Yeah. So the goal of this is like to do a better AI for NHL 94 and to make it easily accessible. And eventually, people can tweak it and do tournaments. Like if they want to do AI, let's say AI tournaments with it.
Oh,
Also, it's all open source. Everything is totally open source. Like eventually, I hope like some people will want to participate in that. But I think it's not mature yet. It's not a mature project yet. So there's still a long ways to reach the goal I want.
it's kind of a labor of love. You do it on the side, and it's for using something. You're mating two things that you love, both machine learning and NHL 94, and it's awesome to see that you're doing that. So some of the goals I see, you want to make it easier to use, easier to start up, but also better than the AI that's currently in NHL 94. But you've mentioned that it's probably already better than the AI, right? Is that correct? Or
Yeah, it's a bit the for the one-on-one version, it's
uh-huh.
better. So I find it tougher to play against the machine learning version than the in-game one. But I didn't have feedback from the other players yet. I don't know how they find it. Uh, Probably pro players can beat it easily because it follows the same pattern, but it uses tricks that the base AI cannot. So yeah, like it's definitely like a step up. But I think people like the people that on the NHL 94 Discord, like what I believe they're expecting is like the AI for the full version, like the 5 player team, and 6 of course. So yeah, that's I have no idea yet for that because uh, the thing to understand is like every time I try something, like just for the one-on-one version, the two models, machine learning models I train. it's 32 hours of training. So
Oh my
I tweak a
God.
parameter, I wait 32 hours before seeing the results. So, and
Why
this
is
is
it
when
that
I got
long?
it correctly. It's reinforcement learning is not like it's not like they say it's not data efficient. It requires huge, like the AI requires to see a huge amount of games in order to start understanding simple stuff that the human would understand in just a
Uh-huh.
couple of years. Yeah. Like with all the hype we have, on the internet, it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like
Yeah.
GPT is amazing. Like it's really a big shit, and it has a bright future. But it's not AGI. It's not like it won't be Terminator anytime soon. One of the reasons because it takes a huge amount of data to in order to train. Even with a huge amount of data, it still makes some very basic mistakes because simply like we didn't find an algorithm or a model yet that was that efficient.
So
So yeah.
I'm gonna go a little bit into the different direction, but then come back to this point of the discussion. Are you familiar with Alpha Zero? That's Google's AI that they use to train a chess model.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So the way I understand it, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, is essentially it learned itself, like it played itself over and over, and it just it figured out the right strategy, and now it is the best AI program for chess. It has beaten Stockfish, which was previously the king of the hill. So the Alpha Zero is now the best AI, and it did it all by itself. It learned through its own and just through playing itself. Now, is there any opportunity for RetroArch AI to do the same, where it could somehow play itself in a one-on-one situation and learn through that and develop a better type of gameplay? And it would take, as you mentioned, a tremendous amount of data and time to do it. But is that a possibility for this to become a reality?
Yeah, that's part of my plan is to use self play. So basically, self play is very powerful, like play against itself, like you mentioned. Uh, so yes, this is part of the plan to one of the components I plan to integrate for NHL 94. It's going to make the AI much better. But this takes time to code and do it properly. Actually, NHL 94 is a bit more complex than chess.
Yes.
Chess is complex because of the possibilities. Like, don't get me wrong, it's like very
Right.
hard to master. But the basic of the game is very, very simple. Like there is, just so many pieces and so many moves you can do. And in Shell 94, you can do much a much larger number of moves. So it's for an AI, it's more complicated, I think.
Got it.
And yeah,
Oh no, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
yeah, it's like Dota. Like I don't know if you saw Dota and Alpha and StarCraft AIs.
Oh, I've heard of it.
So yeah, yeah. So like OpenAI and DeepMind each worked on these kind of games. I think DeepMind was with StarCraft, yeah, AlphaStar, their AI called AlphaStar, and OpenAI was the OpenAI 5 that played Dota. So, but if you read their papers, they say the amount of computing research it took is absolutely insane. It's like I don't know, it's like something in the ballpark of $15 million, something like that. Uh, and this is unpractical for the video game industry because okay, let's say you have this money, right? Well, you had this money, you got an investor, they say, okay, I'm going to give you $100 million for training. But let's say you make a mistake and you need to retrain your models first, or the design of the game changes fundamentally. You need to change. Normally, the way it works right now, the model is not like a human where it can adapt. Like if you change, there's some things you change that really trigger for a human, but for the AI, it's going to be completely lost. So, for example, if NHL 94, if I want to do the AI for NHL 95, I'm going to have to retrain it completely. Simply because, the physics a bit different and things like
Mhm.
that, and it's going to throw off the AI completely. So I would need to retrain the models. So I would need to go through the whole budget, the computing budget again. So this is one of the things that's not really said in the mainstream media. Like when you watch YouTube, you all have those clickbait articles with like Pikachu faces and saying AGI is coming next month or something like that. I mean, no, it's it's impressive. Like the it's one form of intelligence. Like it's not smart. It's one form of intelligence, but it's not what people think it is. It's a form of intelligence that requires huge amount of data and huge amount of computing resource. It's still very awesome and still very useful, and it deserves some hype, but it's not ideal.
Do you think it's going to be easier to develop a competent AI opponent that is using the actual player versus the goalie? Like the way I'm thinking about it, if there wasn't like the regular AI that we played when we played against a computer, and if that was, our opponent, like the Gretzky that's on the other side of the ice, they're good enough. But it's the goalie, I think, there's a tremendous gain that if you had somebody competent playing it, like in fact AI, I think that may be a huge gain that you could just make it hard to beat that player because the goalie would be so strong, the AI goalie would be so strong. And I think in terms of developing a model there, it's kind of restricting it. You're not dealing with the whole ice, you're dealing with a very small section of the ice. I think that's more of a doable and a quicker goal. Do you think that's a possibility that so a computer AI version of the goalie, is that a possible like solution we'll be seeing sooner rather than later?
Yeah, it's not. It's. I don't think it would be very hard. That's a good idea. Something I can integrate. Uh, yeah, I could try. The tricky part would be like the AI needs to decide when it should switch the control to the goalie versus having a player chase the opponent with the puck, right? So that 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 decision would have to be made. Uh, but once that decision is made, like having a model that controls the goal, that's certainly possible. Now to train it, I would need to. That's the hardest part is like how to train it efficiently,
Uh-huh.
because that's the tricky part. Like for example, train uh, finding the right training set to teach the AI the right the outcome you want is not as easy as it sounds. So let's say you say, okay, I'm just going to reward the reinforcement learning works with reward, right? Like you get the reward for the outcome you want, and you punish for the outcomes you don't want, and you give it a chance to play, through millions of games, and eventually it's going to figure out like how to get the outcome. If you like, if I simplify a lot, but the tricky part is like it doesn't it doesn't reach the outcome you want easily. So sometimes you need to divide the problem into steps. So for the goalie, like how I would do that, I still need to think like how I would like a hockey coach, I guess. Like I guess what I want to say, like a hockey coach, like a coach, like you just tell the player, oh, you need to score more goals, or you need to be better at defense, right? It's much more tricky than that. Like this like what we don't see during the practice, like all the psychology and like okay,
Mhm.
you're thinking too much about this part. Like the coach needs to micromanage a bit, like the trainings, and so for AI, it's even worse actually. So I don't know if that's I'm expressing myself clearly for that, but like it's even harder than a coach to a human.
Hmm.
It's like you have to sometimes like the AI will there's some simple stuff you won't understand. You need to like divide the training into even smaller steps. So for example the AI model in the attack zone that you can play with RetroArch right now is basically the model is just trained to go in front of the goalie very fast. That's it, nothing else. And because before I said, okay, well, I'm gonna give it a reward to score a goal,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna give it points to go very fast in front of the goalie. So eventually, I was thinking, well, the AI will figure out how to score goals, but it did not because that was too complicated. So I reduced it to just okay. I'm giving you points just to go fast in front of the goalie with inside a certain band, and for the shooting part, I'm gonna hard code it, and that worked much better because the AI will figure out how to go fast in front of the goalie, like to avoid the other player because you have to
Hmm.
avoid the other player, not lose the puck. That the AI figured out. But yeah, so but to get that, I tried many things in order to go to that simple case, and that worked well. So yeah, it's very finicky. So in a nutshell, like it's very finicky. So you have to try many things and see what works, see what doesn't.
That's fascinating. And in terms of
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm gonna try to dumb this down as much as possible, so forgive me. In terms of training it, what is the process? I mean, you've described it in a very a high level way of doing it. You're basically giving it a reward when it does something right. But are you actually going into the code and doing this? Like, how is this done? Like, what is the process for training? And I'd love to know, like, just how this is done in the end.
Yeah. So I use two libraries. So OpenAI did during the research, they did a lot of useful libraries in order for the own research, and they share it on GitHub. One is called OpenAI Retro, the other is OpenAI Baselines. Retro is like it's like a framework for to train on video games, on retro video games like NHL '94. Well, there was not, they didn't support NHL '94. I did support for that, but the basics like was there was support for Sonic, Super Mario, and all of those games. So it was easy to have for NHL '94. And baseline is for the algorithms like TPO. So TPO is an algorithm to develop a reinforcement learning algorithm to develop. So I use those two libraries. Then uh, the process is first you need to use PPO to and you need to define well first you need to define a model. So the choice of the model is not that also is not easy. So at first I choose like CNN. It's got a model called CNN, and this is for the visuals, so to recognize images.
Hmm.
And basically, I just feed what you see when you play NHL '94. The problem with this is like since there's a lot of action going off screen, the AI got confused and it was very hard to figure out what's happening.
That's
So
true. I
when
never
I
thought about
switched,
that. Like the stuff
yeah,
that goes off the screen,
yeah,
it's gonna screw it up. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you're right. That's gonna really screw up the whole process. Sorry.
yes, but it's not impossible. Like I'm not saying it would be impossible for AI to figure it out. It's just that it would take huge, way more computing power that I don't have. So that's one of the main reasons. So uh, and so I tried this for a long time, and I never got the results I wanted. So I switched to MLPs, to like a multi-layer perceptron. It's like much simpler model where you just feed directly the coordinates, but that would involve scanning the RAM, getting in the RAM, and extracting all the values for the player position, puck position, the score, and the stats for shooting, etc. So I extract all these stats and I feed it. I feed some of it the multi-layer perceptron, and it's a much smaller model, much simpler. So it's maybe 10 times. I don't remember exactly the number, but it's like maybe 10 times as small as the CNN model. So it's much faster to train. And but you lose the visual information, so you got to make sure that you feed the right data. And that part is also finicky. Like the data, you have to feed it. You have to normalize all the coordinates because you cannot just like feed it the random values as is, right? You have to normalize. You have to process this data before feeding it to the model. And so yeah, I use NLP, and then TPO. There's a bunch of parameters. Like it's like that's an art form. Like how to tweak that algorithm to like the learning rate, for example. Uh, it's you have to go from trial and error. There's no there's no magic solution
Mm-hmm.
yet. And so basically, you use PPO to run the PPO algorithm and the model, and you to use to train the model on the game for thousands or millions of trials of games, and eventually you hope that the reward is increasing. And the most important part, like they mentioned yet, is like you need to define a reward function. So like how do you reward your so the PPO needs a reward function. Like how do you reward your AI? So to get the outcome you want. And as I said previously, this is much harder than it sounds because for 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 simple games like Mortal Kombat,
Mm-hmm.
uh, well, again, Mortal Kombat is not simple to master. Like if you want to be a champion of Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, that's not simple at all. I'm not saying that, but the base game is simple. Like you hit the opponent, the health goes down, and the reward is pretty much immediate. Like you won't wait
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes for your strategy to pan out. Like the NHL '94. NHL '94, like you, you like you have to set up your like you're in let's say you're in the defense zone. Uh, well, you have to think the whole strategy to go and score a goal. Like how do you feint the opponent? Do you pass to your teammate right now, or you try to
Mm-hmm.
get out of the defense zone right yourself? Or there's all sorts of things you need to think. You think, and to know if the what you're doing is the right move, you won't know it after a long while. And this for the current state of the art algorithms out there, reinforcement algorithms out there like PPO, it's still very hard. Like when the reward is too far off, like for a StarCraft game, for example, it's very hard for these algorithms to, to make the relationships between moves you did 20 minutes ago and the current outcome right now. Uh, so unlike a human will like naturally, even for a human, it could be hard playing mastering StarCraft, but still, you can more easily figure out that
Mm-hmm.
okay, what I did, how I started the game 20 minutes ago is that was the right move. That definitely something that helped me. He's going to be able to analyze this. For an AI, it's like he just tries millions and millions of things, and it's very hard to find like relationships between all his action and the outcome. So you need to feed it a lot and lot and lot and lot of games,
Yeah.
and hopefully it will converge. Yeah, so yeah, that's the process. So and then it doesn't work. Obviously, first time it doesn't work, and you need to readjust. Like okay, how do I redefine the reward function? Like do I give it reward for a smaller reward for some smaller step? So unlike a Mortal Kombat game where you just get reward for the health of the opponent went lower, then you get reward.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much easier. And for Mario as well, like like get a mushroom, get reward. Like advance the to the right, I get reward. It's much easier, or like this at least a simple levels. Yeah,
Are you familiar with Mario? You ever hear of that?
yeah. So that was I think 2015 the first deal. He was using I think it's Sublime his name, I'm not sure, but he was using genetic algorithms. So that's something I want to try. Like I played with these like a while ago, almost like 8 years ago, and it's quite interesting. But it's much slower actually for some things than YouTube. But I still want to try. Like what I want to try is a mix of a lot of algorithms because I feel that the solution will be a mix of different ones working together at different stage for different models of the AI.
Right.
Like
There's
maybe
a
for the goal, yeah.
there's a few things
Yeah.
you said and just it touched on me, and I never thought about it. Like for instance, number one, players being off screen, like trying to like as a human, I could kind of figure out where they may be. I could just and where they may be coming from, but I guess a computer might have a difficult time of figuring that out at the onset. The second thing is how difficult it is how dynamic NHL 94 is. You were talking about Mortal Kombat, where the game is simple, where you could easily see if something is being done right. You just look at the energy bar of your opponent. If it's going down, you're doing the right thing. But NHL 94, it's a totally different thing. It's like a chess match, but a 4D version of chess. Like it's just way different. And it's just, it, yeah. And the third thing is the speed of it. You were talking about Mario being a little bit slower, or Mario being a little bit slower in terms of the programming that was used to the model for that. But in NHL 94, it's dynamically and it's fast. There's things are changing quickly. So I never realized the challenges that are involved on making a competent AI to play NHL 94. And I got to give you credit, like the fact that you're doing it. And I know it's you try to make it simplistic at the onset, simply just a one-on-one. And you're taking a lot of variables out of the equation, but still, it's, man, what a challenge. I got to give you credit for that. Not sure if you want to add anything to that, but it just
Yeah,
dawned on me right now.
it's quite challenging. Like it's harder than I thought. Like initially. So the fact that the reward is far off makes it challenging, but it's still much easier than let's say we do an AI for StarCraft. That's for sure. StarCraft is even worse. But like I wish I would have put more time into it. Like I could do that full time. Okay, it would go much faster. But
Maybe we'll start a GoFundMe and have you quit your day job and do this on a full-time basis.
yeah, I'm not sure my employer would be happy with that. But actually at work I did a presentation about that to my colleagues.
Could you talk about that at
They
all?
told me, yeah, I did a short form of it on YouTube. So I have on YouTube I did a video about it. So it's not exactly like I present because there's some things I cannot say publicly, I guess.
Uh-huh.
But like the core of it is on YouTube. Like the interesting part is on YouTube.
I want that link because then I'm going to add it to the show notes. So that way, if anybody wants to see it, it's there. So
Uh,
after,
yeah,
I definitely want that for people who are interested in watching it as well.
yeah.
So that'd be awesome. So, got a question to do with the trials. You were saying that you do thousands or sometimes millions of trials. What type of computing power do you have? Is it something exotic, or are you just simply using an off-the-shelf desktop or laptop to do everything?
Oh, I have like a mid-range gaming hardware for that. So I have an RTX 2060 Super. I have the 12 gigabyte version, not the 8 gigabyte version, but you don't need the 12 gigabyte version for that. And I have Intel 12700K, so the Alder Lake Intels, and so that's good hardware. Like when I say mid range, it's not like low tier hardware. That's good hardware, but it's reasonable for I guess the average gamer in North America.
Hmm.
So yeah, you could use that, and even on much cheaper hardware, you can get decent results. You're gonna wait, maybe twice as long, but even like on a GTX 1060, which is start to be another card, you can get reasonable results. And yeah, that's the kind of hardware I use. Like you don't need to overspend for this type of thing. But I plan to buy more because
Hmm.
I want to try many things at the same time. So uh, because like the way I work is like I work on my laptop,
Hmm.
which is a decent laptop, but I just prototype on my laptop, and then when I'm ready to do a full training, I upload it to my this server, my home server, so my little home lab. So basically, I can do multiple things at the same time, and but I plan to buy more so that I can try more ideas faster.
That makes sense. Now, in terms of, I want you to walk me through the process. If somebody that's listening to this or watching this and they want to try out RetroArch AI, could you go through the process and how they can get this installed up and running?
Just to play it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they can go on my GitHub. Let me open it.
and I'll put the link for the GitHub
I
on the show notes as well.
Yeah, actually, a while ago I planned to do a video on it, but I didn't have time. So it's good that you asked. Uh, so
Because I'm sure people are going to be like, I
maybe
want to try this out, and since I have you here, maybe you could just walk us through the whole process on how to get
yeah.
this done.
So you can go on my GitHub. It's I'll send the link. Can I send the link in the Discord chat or
Yeah, you can send it to me through Discord, and then I'll add it to
yeah?
the show notes. But I have it here, and actually, I can share my screen. Maybe. Um, let's see if it works. Share screen.
Yeah,
Screen two. Well, hang on. This is pretty poor quality. Apologies for this. I'm terrible at the presentation. Slides? No, let's extra cameras. Share screen. Gosh, I don't know how to make this work. Screen two. No, I have no idea how to make this thing work. This shares. Oh,
yeah.
well, you can just walk us through the process then. Like, just go through it. That'd be awesome.
So you go on the release page of the GitHub repo of RetroArchAI,
Yep.
and you've got two releases so far. So I suggest taking the latest one, and which you can play with the Mortal Kombat AI.
Ah,
And sorry, Virtual Fighter. Mortal Kombat can come later, but for now it's a Virtual Fighter 3 And so basically, uh, you start NHL 94, the one-on-one room. It's very important. It has to be the one-on-one. The full
yes.
version doesn't work. And in the quick menu, when you play, you start the two-player match. And in the quick menu, once the game started, in the quick menu, you can override one of the player controllers. So basically, it's just going to override the buttons of the controller. So depending if you're player one, then you want to override player two,
Hmm.
and if you're player two, you want to override player one, obviously. And if you want to just have the AI versus AI match, then you override both of them, and they can play for you. Uh, and yeah. So that's pretty much it for now. So I made it simple so that people just want to play against AI, and that's it. Eventually, I want to add like more information on screen, like for debug and be able to show like what's happening underneath in real time. Also, more options like to tweak level of difficulty, things like that, or what parts you want to use machine learning for the AI and what part you want hard coded. Because just as a reminder, like the current AI is like a mix of hard code and a mix of models. So there's two models plus, like for example, like to go from the defense to attack zone, it uses it's hard coded. It's like normal. I mean, hard coded is just normal code. It's normal state machines. Uh, it's just for like the two precise parts that I use the model for. You'll be able to paint the goalie,
Mm-hmm.
and the other model is to for defense zone to catch the puck
Mm-hmm.
when you're in defense. So yeah, that's how it works. Uh, and then, but I put it in the Discord server, but I didn't have any feedback yet. Honestly, I didn't run after feedback because so many things to do that I don't want to hurry people and then not have the time to put some feedback. But eventually, yeah, I hope I can get some feedback so I can improve, maybe the UI or the AI as well.
Well, Mathieu, I'm certainly interested in this, and I'm going to give you some feedback after trying it out. And I noticed, I just want to confirm this though. It has to be built because I see there's both build on Linux and build on Windows. So when I clone the code from GitHub, I have to build it. So I have to compile the code. Is that correct?
No, well, you can build it yourself, but you don't have to. Like in the release panel on the GitHub, I have pre-compiled version for Windows,
Ah, okay.
so no need to compile anything. Yeah.
Excellent. So that precompiled stuff, it's available on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux.
Just Windows for now. If you want Linux, you're gonna need to compile yourself, unfortunately, for now.
Okay, got it.
So yeah, yeah.
Any
I
idea if you're going to
figured
be
Linux.
releasing? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you if you're going to release one for Mac OS. I know there's a number of Mac OS users out there that might be interested in this.
Yeah, I thought about this, but like I don't have Mac. I don't have a Mac anymore since a while. So either I can spin up a virtual machine or one of my
Uh-huh.
servers uh, and try to build it, or buy a Mac. But uh, I don't have any key for this because that that would require quite some time to make it work correctly. Uh, but yeah, but if someone out there is listening and is a a Mac programmer, then feel free to
Awesome.
contribute to the project or make your own fork and make your own version. Uh, that, but for now, I don't see when I'm going to have the time
Got it.
this year to do a Mac. So yeah, from I'm guessing you're running a Mac, right?
No, I'm running Linux.
I run Linux. So what Ubuntu or
No, it's Debian.
okay? Oh, so you're Linux users. Oh,
Yeah,
so yeah, you
I'm
don't
one of
have
the
to.
few, and I think I may be the only one that runs RetroArch in Linux. And this is my gaming machine. This is everything for me. So I mean, I 100% Linux, 0% anything else. So when I try it out, I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to compile it. I'm cool with that. I'll be able to do it, I think.
yeah. I run Ubuntu 2204. Mostly for ML stuff. For gaming, and I'm still on Windows. Like Linux gaming has improved a
It's
lot.
gotten so much better. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe should give it a shot again. But yeah, you're gonna need to compile your Linux. If you have problems, let me know. I can help you. Because honestly, I think you're gonna be the first who's gonna compile outside my the user that I know that's gonna compile this stuff. I mean the RetroArchAI stuff, not the because just to clarify, like RetroArchAI, this is just for the RetroArchAI part, like the integration into RetroArch. The actual ML stuff, like to train the models, that's a separate GitHub project. And the plugin I use for RetroArch, like I tried to make a plugin that could be plugged into other emulators, front ends like Python, stuff like that. So it's a separate GitHub project. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, you would have to compile this and then also uh, RetroArch.
I'll try my
Maybe I
best.
should do it. Yeah, or you can wait for the video. Like maybe I don't know, in October, somewhere in October, I can make a video about that.
Don't do it
Quite
just
decent.
strictly on my behalf. I'm the only one. I'm one of one in terms of Linux users. If you're going to spend any time and effort on it, I wouldn't just to appease the Linux users because I'm it, I think. So I would say spend your time on something that's going to give you a better return, better rate of return.
Most of the ML developers are using Linux, I think, or WSL from Windows, like for you can emulate Linux from Windows. So we'll see.
I could spin up a virtual machine
Yeah,
in Windows for Windows if I have to. I mean, I could do that too if need be.
yeah, you can try.
Yeah.
Just be sure that you have the decent GPU, I think, because I spun it on a Windows virtual machine, like just to test the setup, and it's quite slow. So, and with the GPU, of course, it can pass through the GPU. Of course, that's for sure.
I got a question to do with people who want to contribute. And you said that feedback is going to be something good, but aside from that, is there anything else people can do to contribute to this project to help improve on it, make it, speed things up? Anything they can do just to help you along the way?
Uh, do features, program, try like if they want to try different models, architectures. So basically, any programmers that are listening, uh, you're more than welcome to contribute to the project. That's the best way to help. Other than that, yeah, like feedback, feedback for the gameplay. Uh, Also interest, like what exactly interests you with that? With that, is like is it AI versus AI competition? Is it just having a better AI in game? Is it to practice to get better? Like for fighting games, like people like AI for fighting games because they can practice against you to get better, to prepare for tournaments. Uh, you know, that kind of feedback is very useful. Apart from that, I just need more time, but no one can do that.
You know what? I think it's time we have an AI versus AI in the King of '94. I think that would be a good segment that could showcase your talents here in terms of this program. And I'm kidding. We'll
Yeah,
see.
or like maybe the next step is like building an AI and not telling anybody and participating in a tournament and see how it fares.
That's a good
I
idea.
don't I don't know if people would like it. That's a bit cheating, but
Well, depending on how well it does, like it could still be very rudimentary and basic in its model, and it may just get throttled, 50-0 every match, or maybe so advanced it's going to throttle its opponents 50-0. I don't know. I mean, that'd be interesting. Just kind of submit it and start playing without telling anybody, and just enter the tournaments, enter some leagues, and see what happens. But I guess you'll notice,
yeah,
like, it would be interesting because the style of play, if it's totally different, like say for example my style of play, and I say I'm going to enter a tournament or a league or something, and I use AI to play for me, and it's very noticeable that it's not me playing. It's not my style. It's something that's
yeah.
so I guess somebody would call me out right away, especially if if you're you've played enough and you built a history. But I got a question to do. In a year time from now, say September of 2025, realistically, where do you think this project will be?
Um, Hopefully the full version will have a decent AI that challenges people. Maybe not better than the top pro players in the tournaments, but decent enough to be interesting. I hope to get more users because like more users justifies more time, like to spend more time on it. Uh, so definitely like more visibility. But yeah, like if I could try like self play in 1 year time frame, if I could try like self play and the full versions, and maybe like a model for the goalie, like you say, that sounds like a good idea. Uh, that would be, I think, a good step up and be able to, maybe participate in tournaments. That would be interesting. Also, like what I hope is eventually just what I forgot to mention is OpenAI Retro. I made a fork called Stable Retro, and some foundation that takes care of reinforcement learning libraries for researchers that are interested in it. And eventually they reach out to me and say we want to take care of Stable Retro. So I handed that project to them,
Oh.
but I'm still the maintainer of it. So and people are flocking to it. Like it's still like at the beginning, so there's not that much people, but like more and more people are using it. And instead of the original OpenAI Retro, because the original OpenAI Retro is in maintenance mode, and they no longer like all the manpower of OpenAI is on ChatGPT, things like that right now. So they just say to people like just make your own fork, and and that's what I did like a couple of years ago, and eventually like a lot of people were interested in it. And so yeah, like NHL 94, to come back to NHL 94, like I want it to be a lid like maybe researchers can use to test their AI, because I think it's an interesting game, more interesting than Mario or Mortal Kombat for testing stuff, because it's deeper, but not complex enough that it requires budget that universities don't have. Because StarCraft, like most universities don't have the budget of OpenAI. So I think that's a good NHL 94. I think it's a perfect compromise. The problem I see is that hockey, I think, is not as popular around the world as
Yeah.
we don't realize it, but like in China, hockey is
Yeah, you're correct.
there. That said, there's some very very strong players though. Like there's an arena, there's a garage league. I went to skate a couple of times, like, but not enough. It's not the culture is super not great. But there's hockey leagues. There's kids like they're very 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 good at hockey here, and they want to become pro players. But it's a very tiny amount compared to the population
Right.
size. Yeah. So that's I think the challenge is like if it was a soccer game, I think it would have way more visibility. But for me, and I'm Canadian, hockey first. So
Yes.
NHL 94 first.
Is then the self-play part, is that going to be the holy grail if ever you achieve that? Is that going to really accelerate the whole process for learning?
Self play, yes, it's well, holy. I think the holy grail won't be one single thing. It's going to be a bunch of things together. Yeah. So I don't want to like. There won't be any magic bullets. That I'm pretty sure of it. But unless like some AI labs find some magic formula one day, but for now it's not. So, but self play is going to be a very strong company. I think. That's like that's a very strong tool you can use to improve AI. It's just the reason why it's not there yet is just like it takes time to integrate properly and make it work properly. But that's a, yeah, that's something definitely I plan to try. So and maybe different model architectures. And PPO, well, I plan to keep that as well because for now it's still a state of the art algorithm. And for now, there's nothing that really beats it. Like, I know some crazy idea using LLM to play NHL 94. I don't think it would work very well for the computing power it would take. Like, you can see online, some people are using LLMs to play fire games. Also, even play chess. Chess is very strong at chess. It's not as strong as like the real solutions, but like it's real one in real is like the actual solutions, but it's still very surprising. So maybe if I have time, I can try that. So I can use it on, but that's more on the crazy side. That's not really the realistic side. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with RetroArchAI that we haven't talked about? Anything you want to bring up or anything? Because I've pretty much exhausted that topic, but I want to make sure you have exhausted it as well. So Any last words about it? Anything you want to just talk about it that I missed?
Uh, well, of course, I want to expand it to like many games, not just NHL 94
Mm-hmm.
or like the fighting games. Like like the goal also is to give a second life to games. Like if you're tired of the in-game AI, then you have solutions. But this is a long way. Like, to make this mature is like a long way. It's going to require a lot of help. Like I cannot just do it all by myself. So eventually, I hope some other programmers will be interested. Like Stable Retro, there's other programmers contributed to it. Since then, it's been much easier. But for installing the RetroArchAI, like it's so new, and it's not easy stuff. Like you cannot just programmers that finish their day, they're tired. Like right now, it's Sunday morning, and I'm like my brain is still fuzzy because we worked yesterday actually.
Oh man.
So yeah, uh, so I don't know how I sound exactly, but
No, it's
you
fine.
don't sometimes you don't want to go and learn some new GitHub project, and sometimes you just want to relax and play any
Yeah, I
song
totally get it.
something. So
Totally
I
get it.
understand programmers that they're not flocking to it, and also it's hard for me. It's like, is it really interesting? Like, does it interest
Mhm.
more than more than 100 people around the world? I don't know. So, but I guess in the future it will be. This in the long term future, like in 5 years, for example, I think uh, AI, maybe not recharge AI, but AI with retro games, like be able to generate new levels, have better AI openness. It's really gonna give like a second life to things like modding already exists since the dawn of time, right?
Yeah.
Dawn of games. Like people make countless mods for Super Mario, countless levels. Uh, like their speed runs, uh, but AI, I think, is going to bring also this type of stuff uh, in the future.
Mhm.
But it's going to take more time because the technology is not quite mature yet to be easily usable.
It will eventually get there, and it will eventually mature.
Yeah,
Now, as
yeah.
on a personal level for you, how much longer are you going to be working in China? Do you have a set time you're going to be there before returning back to Canada, or you're going to stay there permanently?
Not, well, I don't know yet. I just taken year by year.
Got it.
It's hard to say. The thing is, like, I'm far from my family, so
Yeah.
if my family was here, I would say I would stay a very, very, very long time. But if one day my parents start aging, something like that, then it cannot be far. So I don't know. But for now, I want to stay for quite some time. I
Okay,
don't want to move back.
that's fair.
Uh, yeah, simply because I feel at home here.
Mhm.
Canada is great, but for programmers, opportunities are very less likely. And also, it's fun to be in this place in China because you're near Japan, such
Yeah.
stuff. And it's a great city.
Mhm.
It's very safe for the size of it. It's like almost 30 million. I think it's 28. I'm not sure.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's but it's quite safe. Like you can like healthcare is decent. Like you can see a doctor like immediately. Unlike Canada.
Mm-hmm. You know what it is? It's incumbent on
Uh,
you, I think, to get those people that are playing hockey. You should introduce them to NHL 94, and maybe you could have some local NHL 94 games to play with some of the locals over there, and you don't have to deal with the lag internationally. You can just deal with domestic lag. So maybe you could get them on
yeah,
board.
I could try, but like when I presented the NHL 94 machine learning project at my work, which the audience was mostly Chinese, like 95%, 99% Chinese. I mean, for them, hockey is not.
Yeah,
I mean, they were interested in the presentation, I think, but for them, hockey, you see, it's not something that resonates much.
yeah.
So I kind of giving up on that that part. But that's okay. Like I mean, like you don't, no one's forced to love
Yeah.
hockey. So I play by myself, and honestly, I don't have much time to play, so I'm so busy with work and that, so I don't play that much, honestly.
Mathieu, any final words before we wrap up this episode? Anything? Any last thing you want to say or anything? Because this is it. This is your last chance.
Nothing. Again, I hope since it's Sunday morning, I didn't sound too sleepy or something like that.
No, you were great, man.
So I'm probably going to listen to myself and be ashamed, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for having me. It's like interesting talk. Eventually, I hope like some people will listen to it and we can have some feedback to the project. If there's some programmers that are listening to it, please, if you want to contribute, you're more than welcome to it. And that's pretty much it. So I'm just curious, like, where in Canada are you? Like the
Just
west?
outside of Toronto in Oakville.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Ontario.
Yeah. So it's a night here. It's 9:15ish right now in the evening. So it's I'm getting ready for bed in a little while. You're already starting your day. So different part of the world, different part of the day.
We're probably gonna go back to sleep, honestly. And after that, and we do some exercise.
But Mathieu, as you progress through this journey of working on this, any new developments, everything, feel free. If you want to come on the show and talk about it some more, I'll be happy to talk to you in the future. So you keep plugging away with your spare time. If you have anything that's new, anything you want to talk about, man, just let me know. We'll get you back on. So appreciate you taking the time to come talk to me about it. This has been awesome.
Sure thing.
And with that, we're done this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back at this rather soon. I got one lined up very, very soon. I don't want to say who, but it's going to be a fun one. But until then, keep your controller plugged in and your stick on the ice.